Okay, guys, welcome back. We're sorry we tried to go live. We wanted to go live. We did everything we could in our power, but until I get this internet guy out here, I don't know what's going to happen with my internet. It just doesn't want to work. So, thanks for being patient. We're going to just record this conversation. We'll be able to upload the video later and be live in the chat. And so, I'm going to welcome Rockman to the show. Welcome, Rockman.
Hi everyone, it's good to be here.
So poor Rockman has now had to answer this question for me 3 times, but I'm going to ask him again because God bless him, he has patience. And he just joined the gold and silver. Well, he didn't just join. He's been part of the gold and silver business with me for a couple months now of 7K metals. I'm going to link his page, which is, I believe if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, it's at the top of the image here. People will see, but it's...
That is correct, that is me.
Okay, so tell me what you think about the gold and silver business so far.
Well, I got into it before this pandemic thing started, and regular money was working essentially like I always did. Being loaned back and forth to multiply its assets and everything like that. Kind of like a big old pyramid scheme, but yeah, I got into this. I believe it was last year when I first joined your Discord and subscribed to your channel, and listening to you and Mike Maloney. And basically just realizing that it lined up with everything that I've learned up until that point. Except that up until that point, I was actually looking into like cryptocurrencies. But then when I realized how much like energy it took to actually mine this stuff, and how controlled it's how much attention is actually getting from like the big bangs and stuff, it's essentially where it's going to be controlled just like gold is at the moment right now. And even silver, where you look at the stock prices, but the thing is, now that the petrodollar is like negatives, it really is just a matter of time before everyone realizes that we're just using monopoly money. And until then, it's just, go with the flow, I guess.
Right, and so when you said a Ponzi scheme, you meant like the regular working job, the regular dollar problem, right?
Yeah, just the way our government decides it wants to print money, the way it does, and how it keeps getting loaned all over the place to multiply and amplify its, because to them debt is currency more so than our pay.
Right. Hang on just a second. Hey, Alan or Saoirse? If you see Saoirse, tell her the internet's working now. Yeah. Okay. Well, great. I've been thrilled to have you join the business. I know it's really hard to talk to people because even in the midst of a crash, they want to rush and buy stocks. They want to rush into the same mistake that they made the first time because buy low, sell high, but they don't know how to sell high. These people don't know what they're doing. And so really what gold and silver is not a buy low, sell high thing as much as it's protection of all other wealth, I would say.
Yeah, in my experience, I really can't get anyone to listen to me other than those I'm professionally kind of scheduled with. Like, for example, when I go towards interviews for work and stuff like that, and I mentioned that I'm in the gold and silver business, it basically adds stuff to the conversation. And I send them some links and I show them, what I have in my pocket. Because I always have like a piece of silver in my pocket because I love just holding it and just having it in my hand, like looking at it shine and glisten because it's what you actually have in your hand, and it makes me feel more secure. But that's just me. Anyway, raising the curiosity of those that are actually willing to listen to you because in that situation, they're already listening to you anyway. So they want to know everything that you have to say to them. And it's just a good opportunity. Whereas when I try to talk about this to like my family and friends, they're generally just uninterested because it's just like, oh, what's he gonna try to talk to me about now this time?
That's kind of a good point. I think that's a good idea. Maybe I should go on more job interviews just to talk to people about gold and silver. That might not be a bad idea.
Yeah, or be the prospective employer on your end, like thinking about having like an assistant and just getting a feel for it, and I don't know, just little ideas here and there, just excuses to keep conversating, keep the conversation.
I think that I would love to get an assistant, but I would never just randomly interview people for such a position. They would have to be so specific. Have to be somebody that knows me already almost. But I don't know. That's not a terrible idea. That's something to put in the back of my mind and let it roll around.
Yeah, I was ping ponging ideas and how to like network this kind of thing because I'm trying to, of course, on my end, gauge and raise interest in precious metals, especially given like all the facts and all the evidence that we have, on our side that we can share as long as people are willing to listen.
Those with ears to hear and eyes to see, for sure. I think that's why I don't know if you know this, but sorry to bore you if you already do. But the reason I started this YouTube channel was literally to talk about gold and silver, and for a long time that is all I talked about. Well, I wouldn't even say a long time. For quite a while, that is all I talked about. But then I started learning all these other things because of the truth of money. You can't just learn the truth of money and not start learning the truth about everything else. And so because I started learning all this other stuff, I felt like I had to start sharing that too. And I was prayerful about it, and I asked the Lord to show me what I should and shouldn't talk about, or what I don't really like to say rabbit holes, but I guess which what information path to go on. And he did definitely do that for me. And that's really why I started my YouTube channel, was to get the word out about gold and silver. And so I try to make it come back to Jesus first. Always, it always comes back to Jesus. But secondly, I want to throw in the gold and silver topic. And there are people that do not like me talking about it. In fact, we had one of our very few trolls jump in on last night's live stream to tell me to stop selling this stuff and talking about it. And I've had that happen before, where people have said, if you just wouldn't stop talking, if you would just stop talking about silver, I'd like your channel a lot more. Well, I'm sorry, guys, but I'm not going to stop talking about this. This is a big passion for me, next to my first passion, which is to the Lord, and then my next passion, which is to my family. But this is also my career, and I'm not going to stop talking about it.
Well, I guarantee you that the people that are going against you, talking about it and educating people on this, are stacking themselves, and they just, they see anyone that decides to stack for themselves as a company.
That could be a good point, because stackers are especially difficult to get interested in a business like this, because they don't like the idea of something called multi-level marketing, and that just really upsets people for some reason. Instead of looking at the aspect of what that can actually do for you, they are really going on an old time bias from companies that may or may not even be around anymore, or they personally had a bad experience, because what people do is they spend a bunch of money buying into a business like multi-level marketing, and they spend a bunch of money on the product and the training, but they don't ever do anything with it. And then guess what happens? They blame the company, and then they act like, well, the company, multi-level marketing, that's no good for me. And what they don't realize is they don't have to do any multi-level marketing. They can just buy gold and silver and have the advantage of training on what you should buy, what you shouldn't buy, depending on what kind of buyer you are, without any extra cost. A member gets those things automatically. But I get that. I just recently had somebody do that. They said, well, that's not good for me. I just found out every time you get into those, you're just paying for the training. And I'm like, well, that may be, but the training I got, it far supersedes any training I got in college, which is a great segue into the conversation you wanted to have today. So let's get into what you wanted to talk about. The first website I'm going to pull up, and it's just sitting here, so you just use it at your leisure, but you sent me a website on Columbia University, and you wanted to talk about in education indoctrination. Please enlighten me as to what you want us to know.
Well, yesterday when I was getting ready to talk about this, I found out that Columbia University actually precedes the School of Frankfurt. However, as far as the relationship between the two, all that still stands. Like all the facts, all the dates, everything lined up perfectly fine. As far as like why I'm interested in the School of Frankfurt as well as Columbia University is because well, what really caught my attention was when I was working as a janitor 3 years ago in Chicago for a private school, and this was for grades kindergarten to eighth grade. So it was for those age ranges, and yeah, I see a lot of the new Jim Crows. I see a lot of the like social Marxism, Karl Marx literature. I see a lot of like their art projects were picket signs for strikes and activist events. And it just seems to me that oh, where did all of this come from? And then it just seems to line up with a lot of what we're seeing today with like the college professors as well as like their students and their quote unquote grassroots campaigns and all the little events that they set up across the country, as well as their the ideologies that they try to promote and spread. Um, as far as the University of Columbia goes and the School of Frankfurt, what happened was the School of Frankfurt was shut down in 1933 during Weimar Germany, and the professors there. Well, I found out who they were and what they were doing when I did my research into where the word racism came from and started being used as like a hammer against political opponents. And lo and behold, it was them over at the School of Frankfurt. Anyway, that's beside the point. So they established the University of Columbia, and after getting kicked out of Germany, and that essentially sets the educational precedent for the lesson plans for all the other universities in America at the time.
And in looking at this Columbia University website, I want everyone to notice this Manhattan Project uh, link right here on the website itself. And I want to go to this book that I'm reading called The Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow by Constance Cumby, and it was written in 1983. And in this book, I want to just read this real quick, and it's a little bit of reading, but I think it really speaks to what the atomic bomb and the Manhattan Project was. So it reads here. The movement has campaigned long and arduously for disarmament. This is considered a key step to the implementation of their hoped-for New World Order. In the preparatory period for the New World Order, there will be a steady and regulated disarmament. It will not be optional. No nation will be permitted to produce and organize equipment for destructive purposes or to infringe the security of any other nation. One of the first tasks of any future peace conference will be to regulate this matter and gradually see the disarming of nations. And she goes on to talk about the atomic bomb in this. Alice Bailey did not write this book, but this Constance Cumby is pointing out how Alice Bailey wrote about the atomic bomb. The atomic bomb, though used only twice destructively, ended the resistance of the powers of evil because its potency is predominantly etheric. Its uses are twofold at this time. As the forerunner of that release of energy which will change the mode of human living and inaugurate the new age wherein we shall not have civilizations and their emerging cultures, but a world culture and an emerging civilization, thus demonstrating the true synthesis which underlies humanity. And she says synthesis like the Hegelian dialect of the thesis and the antithesis, equaling the synthesis, order out of chaos. The atomic bomb emerged from a first-rate ashram, that is will to good Shambhala force violence energies, working in conjunction with a fifth-rate group, that's scientific workers, scientists. From the long-range point of view, its intent was and is purely beneficent, as a means in the hands of the United Nations to enforce the outer forms of peace and thus give time for teaching on peace and on the growth of goodwill to take effect. The atomic bomb does not belong to the three nations who perfected it and who own the secrets at present, the United States of America, Great Britain, and Canada. It belongs to the United Nations for use, or let us rather hope simply for threatened use, when aggressive action on the part of any nation rears its ugly head. It does not essentially matter whether that aggression is the gesture of any particular nation or group of nations, or whether it is generated by the political groups of any powerful religious organizations who are as yet unable of any religious organizations, leading human beings closer to the God of love. Now, I'm bringing this up because we know that Trump is creating Operation Warp Speed to get 350 million vaccines to the United States citizens of America by the military, and he is comparing this military job, Operation Warp Speed, to the Manhattan Project, which was in charge of the atomic bomb. And we know that many people did not know what they were creating. They were working side by side, having no idea what they were creating in this atomic bomb. And he's comparing it to the Manhattan Project, where this Columbia University is linking to the many uses of the Manhattan Project through them. And I bring up Alice Bailey because she's of the Blavatsky, Alice Bailey, Benjamin Krim New Age movement that's trying to sound a lot like the Q movement with their love and logic and New Age of Enlightenment, and comparing to the Manhattan Project with Donald Trump and the atomic bomb as Alice Bailey talked about it here in this book that I took an excerpt from in The Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow. It's just all too coincidental and concerning to me. And don't you think it's concerning too?
Well, I do. It just seems to me that what you just read is like the perfect combination of flower language as well as legalese. It's just to me it sounds beautiful what they're saying, but we know it's not what they're really saying. It's just a little observation that I have, and also after hearing you read that out loud, makes me at least my gut go in the direction of trying to find out what Trump's education was like over in New York, because he grew up over there. That's where his circle is, his ties are. I'm just wondering what his relationship to the University of Columbia is.
I know he was Jesuit trained. I can't remember the name of the school, but that'd be something we could easily look up. But he was a Jesuit school, so I don't know if he took the Jesuit oath or not.
I would assume he probably had.
What to do? He attended Fordham University. Fordham.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that.
Before transferring to the Real Estate Studies program at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. So finding ties would be something we'd have to, spend some time looking into. But do you have more you want to say? More do you want to say on this Columbia University specific to the Bolshevik movement?
Well, all I want to say is educationally, it was the godfather of the cultural Marxist education programs that the rest of the colleges and universities follow across America and the Western world. And it's basically like a cause and effect. Once they establish control of the educational institutions, they can essentially spread out everywhere else they want. For example, entertainment, news media, even Star Wars. Like, we're seeing like a huge war going on between fans of Star Wars, of the old movies and the new movies, because those that take control of the franchise are the very Bolsheviks that we're talking about, and they're doing to the Star Wars franchise what the Bolsheviks have done to institutions as far as educational, political. There's just a lot of correlation, a lot of things going on at the same time from the same kinds of people, and a lot of names are overlapping. For example, Neo Sarkeesian and Sargon of Akkad and a few other influencers and YouTubers out there. And a lot of these people, they don't really know each other, but I'm seeing a lot of the same things happening in different layers of society and fandom.
Kind of sounds like the old Hegelian dialectic, right? Of having the thesis and the antithesis to create the synthesis, which also Alice Bailey mentioned when she was talking about the atomic bomb.
Yeah, it's just checklists being checked. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Scientific institutions, medical institutions, educational, entertainment, news media, everything. I know the UN was mentioned in what you just read, and I thought that was pretty funny, because right now it seems their primary focus is trying to remove gendered language from the lexicon, as opposed to everything else that's supposedly going on. And I found that to be kind of interesting, because that's also on the checklist for cultural Marxism.
Did you give me a website that has like a checklist of cultural Marxism by chance?
I believe I did.
Let me see. How the cultural Marxists of the Frankfurt School subverted American education. That could be it. So there's this website.
Yeah.
There's this website that you sent called Cultural Marxism. How the cultural Marxists of Frankfurt subverted American education. One thing I'll point out really quickly is I did a video called "Legislating Equality Destroys a Free Nation," and that I really wish more people would watch it, but I put it up twice now and it just does not get views for some reason. I guess I need a better title, something catchier, like this is how it all ends. I don't know, something like that. But it had Yuri Bezmenov was the KGB defector that described what I think you're going to describe a little bit of part of this 4 stages of the ideological subversion, and the first being demoralization, and that's educating an entire generation in Marxist ideology, which is exactly this article that you pulled up on the Marxist plan, if you want to talk more about that.
No, you summarized it perfectly. You're Bezmenov, perfect.
And you even bring up W.E.B. Du Bois, who, if you've watched my research on the Boule, he was the creator of the Boule as we know it today.
Yeah, I'll have to go ahead and save your video on Yuri Bezmenov if I haven't watched it already, to watch it again and save it, because and that's a very important name and more people should know it.
Oh yeah, here it is in your article. It says here, KGB defector Yuri Bezmenov noted that only 15% of the KGB's efforts were spying. The other 85% went into ideological subversion, and he explained it's a great brainwashing process which goes very slowly and is divided into 4 basic groups. I just said that. That's funny. So we're on the same page there. I didn't already make the whole video that we're making now because I didn't go into the details of the educational subversion as much as I kind of just went over the whole 4 stages. And I think right now, the way that crisis works is a violent change of power, structure, and economy. I think we're in the crisis stage, because that's the 3rd stage right before what they call normalization. Now, people get really confused when I say normalization. Normalization isn't normalizing of everything that we see. It's not the normalizing of gays and the normalizing of trans and pedophiles. What it is it's the new normal. It just hit me. It's literally the new normal that they're going to come and make it see fit for everybody. So I think we've been in demoralization. Then we got into destabilization, and I kind of knew it was coming. I've told people when it comes to gold and silver, we're going to hit a crisis. And now the crisis stage is very fast. It's the violent change of power. And then the normalization is where they create the new rules of what we're going to do. But normally in a dictatorship or dictatorialship, whatever you call it, normally in normalization, they would take out all the people who would want to fight against it. They would either take them to a concentration camp or kill them, because they can't have any more people rising up to try to fight the system.
Well, everything you just mentioned is part of their new normal. The tranny stuff, the buggy eating stuff, the drag queen story hour, their crazy policies on releasing criminals, imprisoning citizens, everything that they've been trying to advocate for, the Green New Deal, everything that they want, they're getting. And the people that are supposed to be looking out for our interests are handing it to them on a silver platter. So, yeah, the thing about the subject matter is that it's really hard to narrow it down and focus on one specific thing, for example, just education, because their hands are in many suits, and everyone, or not everyone, but a lot of people think that, patriots are in control and that, the American people are winning, but we haven't won anything since, we haven't won anything since probably World War I, because World War II wasn't a victory for us, so at least I will never acknowledge it as one. One thing I want to talk about in regards to the Frankfurt School is that the reason that they were shut down and kicked out of Germany at the time was because of the material they were promoting. And I found it pretty funny that the material they were trying to promote was synonymous with, the sexuality, drag queen, story hour, tranny, sexualizing the males, dividing and destroying the family. Basically, a lot of the same stuff. And anyone that tried to challenge them on it or become an opponent to them on this, they smeared as sexist, racist, all the same things that we're hearing today. So I just thought that was a pretty interesting pattern that keeps repeating itself.
So in that instance, Trump could look like Hitler before Hitler really became the guy that he became, wouldn't you say?
I'm certain that's how they want to portray him as.
the reason I say that, for any of you who are unsure what I meant by that, what I mean is that it looks like a great, because I can't tell you how many people have said, well, the alternative is worse. And they really are stuck in this, we only have two choices ideal. And so, because the alternative was worse, which, yes, I agree it was, but what I think Donald Trump is bringing in is, oh, I'm going to save you from all that, which I said in my other video recently. I said, that Trump is like, I'm going to save you from all that, but his way of saving us really isn't going to benefit us at all, just like Hitler didn't benefit a lot of people. I don't think that the numbers are correct when it comes to the Jews at all. In fact, you can find that he was a Jew himself, but that doesn't mean he wouldn't kill Jews. That just means he's obeying a higher order. But however, he ultimately was not doing the greater good for his nation, and I wonder if we're going to see that in our country. Now, we still have our guns. That's the difference here. I think this is more of a test or a transition or trying to transition, but they're not going to be very capable of it with as many guns as we still have out there. That's the one thing that brings me comfort, is the fact that most people still have their guns.
Yeah, that's definitely one sense of comfort. Another sense of comfort, ironically, I'm going to say, is probably our diversity. I'm not gonna say it's a diversity that they're trying to force down our throats, but it is a diversity of thought. There's too many of us that believe in what we believe, whether it's one way or another. And we're not gonna, at the very least, in our own homes or as far as the world around us is concerned, we're not gonna. At least I would hope that we're not going to tolerate anyone that tries to force their views on us, because it's essentially what's going on. Everyone's like basically at the moment sitting in their homes, basically just waiting until it's okay to go outside and work again, while at the very same time, the Bolsheviks / cultural Marxists, blue check marks, are consolidating their power and basically just pushing policy and getting it passed and doing pretty much everything that they want. Like, look at Michigan, look at Georgia, look at Florida. Well, I think Florida's pretty okay at the moment, but my own state, Washington, like, whew, I need to get out of here. But
Yeah.
that's beside the point.
Yeah, they're going to be required. Well, okay, so that's the problem now, is they realize that at the highest level they couldn't get Trump to go the way they wanted. And somebody asked me today, do you think that they really do hate Trump, or do you think that that's part of the show? And I said, no, I think they really hate him. I think there really is two factions at war here, and he is not bringing in the way the old guard wanted it brought in. He's not a Reagan, he's not a Carter, he's not a Bush. He is not doing it the way they want, but he's doing it the way somebody wants. And I really, really think that, yeah, he's trying to bring in what looks to be like the better thing, but again, they can't control him, so now they're controlling at the state level. Now, what's interesting is he's allowing that. And I will, on the side of the QAnon people, I'll say maybe he's doing that so that they can expose themselves for just how political this is. And I think that's working, because more people in my hometown that I talk to, while a bunch of goofballs are wearing masks while driving, the majority of people I talk to agree with me on this, and these are normies. You could not sit these people down and talk about most of the stuff we talk about. And now, like we were just saying, they kind of have an ear to hear, maybe not with the gold and silver yet, but they really, this is almost like it's a slam dunk for Trump. I really think this is going to be a slam dunk for his reelection. What do you think?
I think that as far as what everyone says that they're afraid of, as far as like him becoming the next Hitler or whatever. This is to go along with what we were talking about earlier, is that I would be more concerned with whoever comes after him. That's who I'd be the most scared of. As far as his re-election, I think that's pretty much guaranteed. It was guaranteed before this crisis happened. It was guaranteed during, and it's guaranteed after, because all the alternatives to the orange man are a bigger joke than him himself. My opinion in 2016 is pretty much the same as it is now, whereas once Trump and his campaign started, he essentially turned the entire political process into a reality show itself. And I believe the media's constant spotlight on him and and his supposed blunders is a part of that, is a part of the whole production. I believe they do actually hate him, as much as they seem to do, but at the same time, they know he is on their team, and they can't, they have to try everything they can against him because that's the role that they have to do because, of course, they thought Hillary was going to win. Funny thing is that one of the bulletin boards in the school I was working at had a list of all the presidents, like from 1 to 45, and had Hillary Clinton as 45, and this was still in mid 2017. No, summer of 2017. They still had Hillary Clinton on that list as one of the presidents.
That's a joke. Here's the thing: is I don't think he is on their side. So let's say, so if you look at the black hats and the white hats, let me read something else to you from this book. There's a passage, that talks about this person goes. Her name's Constance Cumby. This book was written in 1983, and she talks about the New Agers even have a perspective on the War of Armageddon. However, their scenario differs from the biblical account, of course, because they're going to think they win. And then she says she's going to read from this following passage, and it talks about the Black Lodge or Black forces, meaning religious Orthodox forces, whereas the White Lodge or White forces used by the New Agers to refer to themselves. And they talk about black magician and all this stuff, but on religious orthodoxy. So what we might be looking at is in the old guard, we had like a real Jewish Orthodox type of scenario, and Trump might be more of the New Age, or vice versa. But the point is Q talks about black hats and white hats, and I think this is what they mean. I think the battle is between an old system that doesn't want Trump to bring in his new system. While it's two sides of the same coin for you and me, they actually do hate each other. That's what I think.
It's hard to determine what the intent and the rules are for these psychedelic neo-pagans because they don't really know what's going on themselves. Like, their own dogma is essentially just projection. And you see that with how they label things. They're calling white, black, black, white. They fall under the duality, the yin yang. They fall under the false dichotomy. So their own thinking is limited. Which is kind of ironic considering what they're supposedly striving for.
Well, that's because Satan still lies to them too. Like they might, they think that they're actually more enlightened than you and I. They think that they're a little bit more advanced. They say that everyone can advance. Evolution is huge for them, but some are just a little bit more advanced than others. So you and I really aren't going to probably make it. But I do start to get the feeling, and I do pray about this, and so I might not be right, but I feel like this book has been blowing my mind because it just seems to point to Q and everything that Q says, and it sounds very much like what this book says these New Agers are fighting. And I think that people like Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden and some of these guys, I think they're actual Satanists, and I think it's a Satanist versus Luciferian battle. So hear me out if you will. I think the Satanists are really the ones that are disgustingly sicker than we can imagine. And I don't think Trump likes the whole child molestation, mutilation thing because these Satanists, they do it to please Satan. So it's going to be as dark and as disgusting and as creepy as Aleister Crowley. But I think Donald Trump is not a good guy. He doesn't care about us. That's not what I'm saying. But it's a battle between two groups that definitely seem to disagree. Both still a problem for us, both still following Satan, but guess the person at the top is lying to both of them. That's why that's why it's, I think, such a small viewpoint, like you said, or they're just not really understanding how it really works because they're following blindly, just like the QAnon people are starting to do. In fact, I had somebody today that said, "Who are you?" Because I responded to a comment on Facebook, and they said, "Who are you? You're obviously not QAnon." And I said, "Does that mean you're not willing to look at the facts because you don't like what I say goes against your belief system?"
I believe I believe it makes absolute sense that King Orange Man would be a Jesuit because considering everything that we know about them between you and me and the rest of our server. And I find it kind of funny how how these Q followers are basically functioning as they're following the playbook. They're following the Bolshevik playbook, and they don't even realize it because they've been tricked into doing it.
Yes, they are following that playbook. So you have this article that says Gramsci and Frankfurt School, quick and dirty, mutating our entire society's perception of reality. So you're saying it kind of all started with Frankfurt and Columbia. And is there something you wanted to pick out of this article in particular?
Just an observation that I had going through these links in general is that everyone talks about the meme war beginning or it being in 2016, but really the meme war started essentially when these institutions were founded. Because that's when the war of ideas essentially began, and we see propaganda, counter-propaganda, information, disinfo, basically just the public consciousness is essentially a rope in a big old game of tug of war. And as far as like the multiple clans of Luciferians and Satanists going against each other, it would make sense that they would be warring against each other because, of course, they believe they already won. Why would they consider the rest of us as like a worthy opponent for challenging them for their power? Because we're all sitting in our cages just waiting.
Good point. Yeah, the battle against us is kind of already won. We've already kowtowed and given up many, many, many rights. And I'm not saying what a bunch of idiots, because I didn't know the Patriot Act was going to do that. And you're younger than I am, so I'm sure you didn't know the Patriot Act was doing that. Or if you did, God bless you for being so young and knowing. But I didn't even know what that did to us. I didn't even feel it infringed on my rights. I just didn't like it. I just said, I don't like flying anymore. I don't like having to do all this stuff. But I didn't say, goes against my God-given rights. I don't know about you. Tell me how you felt about all that.
I was 19 years old, just enlisted in the Air Force when I first learned about the Patriot Act. And when I really started getting into what happened during 9/11 and with whom I've been involved. So, that essentially just shaped the rest of my outlook from then on, because I was still enlisted while I was still learning about a lot of this stuff. And it was kind of strange. It was kind of surreal being part of the military while learning what we have done throughout history. So, just a little perspective there.
Right, so I guess I'm trying to say in defense of anyone who didn't realize that their rights were being taken away, because I think what happens in the truth community too is a lot of people are shamed for not knowing the truth as long as everybody else. Well, I've known this since 1997. I've been saying this, and I'm like, well, I'm sorry, I don't think I knew anything until 2015, but at least I know it now. And so to give anybody any kind of, if there's anyone out there that is new to this stuff, I didn't realize that this Patriot Act was infringing on my rights. And so there's going to be a lot of people that don't realize the coronavirus. Now, I think less people feel like coronavirus is not infringing on their rights. I think more people think it is, because this is a little bit different. I think we're really seeing the true political powers at play. But I think I'm giving those people who don't see this the ability to know that it's okay to say, I didn't see it that way at some point, because I didn't either. I didn't know they were taking my rights with the Patriot Act until I learned what it really was, even though I was living through it. So we can see how some people are going to just go along with this and not think it's infringing their rights because they're not feeling it that way. I'm sure that makes sense to you, right?
Well, yeah, and to build upon that, we as a collective are being groomed to be more reactionary, so that anytime we see something that might be perceived as an opposing standpoint or opinion, we, even like, if it's just like subconsciously, we identify these people as ideological opponents. And given the society that they want to promote, that the world that they want us to live in, being an ideological opponent is essentially equivalent to being an enemy. So we're essentially being groomed into being our own enemies.
Tell me about the memes. So the memes really relate to propaganda. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And another word for propaganda is public relations, PR. When you look at some of the stuff that Goebbels was doing and talking about, it was really, he was a smart guy. He knew what he was talking about as far as like how to manipulate his people, as well as European people. And you want to know why he was so good at it? Because he took his lessons from the international Bolsheviks that were doing the very thing across Europe, trying to start out the German people. So just a little bit of cause and effect there. It's just the meme war, like the war of ideas. It's just I think it precedes all the other wars.
So the meme war is the war of ideas, but calling it memes is nothing new, probably.
I think when most people think about the memes, they think about like it being a recent phenomenon. But a meme isn't just a picture with words on it. A meme is essentially an idea and how it's presented and shared.
Well, that's new to me. That's interesting.
Yeah, we see the meme wars of 2016 as an example of what they can do and how powerful they can be, and we've seen campaigns since then that demonstrate the very same thing. One can argue that QAnon is itself just
Sorry, you cut off on the end. QAnon is itself just what?
just another meme.
Yeah, I would say, and the fact that you can point out so much of it sounds so new age, and I mean, you're gonna maybe enjoy reading this book, but I feel like I probably read it so much to you, you'll have it all down. But it really does point to exactly what Q says. There's so many of these things that these New Agers have said that Q have said. On number 7, so on this article that's called the Frankfurt School Theory that you sent, it's got a list of things that they're doing. One is to create racism offenses. 2 is continual change to create confusion. 3 is the teaching of sex and homosexuality to children. 4, undermining schools and teachers' authority. 5, mass immigration. 6, promotion of excessive drinking. And 7, the emptying of churches. Isn't it funny to see how that one has happened overnight with the COVID-19 scare? Overnight, all our churches closed their doors. I mean, there might have been a couple, but I only know of one in this town that kind of stayed open, but I don't think it was for services, but to help the homeless if they needed to come in.
For me, most of the checklists have been met as far as like the intents we see them publicly trying to accomplish. Yeah, there's just so many. There's just so many things that they've accomplished. Oh, the Green New Deal. I wanted to bring that up because right now there's like a campaign for it. When this whole pandemic thing started, they pretty much got everything they wanted. They shut the airplanes down. They're able to cut down travel. They're tossing out like farmers' products and stuff like that. It's just everything that they want, they're getting, and they're acting like they haven't. They're acting like that they're not getting it, that they want more.
Boy, isn't that the truth? And what else are they trying to prove with this? Is they're trying to show that, oh, look at nature's coming out more and everything's kind of going back to normal now that we haven't been out there putting our footprint on everything, when really it would take much, much, much longer to notice something like that happen.
Yeah, they just sort of force everyone into their own individual pods, or I guess they realize that they don't need to put anyone in FEMA camps and just keep everyone in their home.
Yeah, that was a good test run. It certainly seemed to pass for them, not so much for us. Man, it's easy to get frustrated, and I'm trying to work on my attitude about it because I know that it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And we know from reading the Bible what's going to happen, and we know that there will be a tribulation, and I don't know if we're raptured before, during, or after, but we got to be prepared for any scenario because we just don't know.
Well, the reason UK and Germany and Sweden are the way they are is because everyone's scared of being called a racist, sexist, this, that, or the other thing. And I think that as long as people are afraid of being called those things, they're not going to do anything.
It's the shame game. There's so much shame going into the efforts of, how dare you go against someone being gay now? And and I'm not afraid. It's uncomfortable, but I'm not afraid to do it. But it is uncomfortable as heck. And for an example, I have, well, I say old friend, but this was my fiance. I was going to marry this guy before I married my husband that passed away. We got in touch again recently, and when I was with him, he had a lot of gay friends and a lot of, really, we hung out with people that were into sexual immorality, and yet at the same time, I believed I was a God-fearing Catholic. It's amazing. It's amazing to look back on that person I was. But anyway, I had thought about him and all of his friends and the situation that he kind of decided to be in, and he's also a right-wing gun owner, so it's really strange. But we got in touch recently, and I wanted to, since we had gotten in touch, I wanted to talk about this. I said I did have the opportunity to mention my belief that being gay is one of those things that people turn to in a situation that they're unable to handle, like a molestation or something, but also it's just an identity problem, not knowing who we are in Jesus Christ. I didn't quite say that to him, but I said, it's kind of like a similar problem to a heroin addiction or these other things. I said, we don't applaud these addictions that cause physical bodily harm to the person, but we're applauding this. And of course, he didn't really agree with it, but it was my moment to try to plug that thought, because it is really hard. We are at a point where it is so accepted that you will have more people come against us for disagreeing with it than will stick up for us.
I think you were correct in comparing those two things, because both of them are examples of feeding the flesh one way or another. I don't believe for a second that we're, born with the sexuality that we had, at least as far as their argument's concerned, because it basically just exposes their hypocrisy on several levels. And as soon as you challenge them on these hypocrisies, that's when the conversation gets derailed into you being on trial for being a hateful person. And I think once it became to the point where I could get fired for having the beliefs that I had, that's when I decided that perhaps maybe these individuals aren't as oppressed as they want us to believe. So I'm going to stop treating them as such. And it's as simple as that. Anyone that has a problem with it, they can have a problem with it elsewhere, because I'm not going to change my perspective on it.
Right. And being politically correct is not something I do anymore. In fact, I kind of went off the rails. I kind of went too.
If you can get me fired just because I hurt your feelings, you are not.
You cut off. If you can get me fired just because I hurt your feelings, what?
Then you are not oppressed. You are
right.
You are the definition of.
Well, what you said makes perfect sense, because what it is it's feelings. If they can't handle how it makes them feel, then you're the bad guy. And I mean, I remember. I even think it's kind of gotten dangerous where people think that bullying is such a problem that they want bullying stopped. And I'm like, well, bullying is not going to be stopped. I'm not saying it's good. I don't like it. I didn't like being bullied when I was a kid. And then I became a bully, and it was really ugly. But I learned a lot from that. And I hope the people that bullied me did. I don't know. Doesn't matter. But I learned a lot from it. And I learned how not to treat people. And I learned that was a stinky way to, make somebody feel. But I turned into what happened to me. And it's not on a scale of massive abuse like a parent or something like that, because peers, that's just how it goes. I mean, it's natural with kids. My kids just went through it now. Like they have one friend that can't be friends with both of them. And so one of them will come home crying. Every time one of them comes home crying. How do you stop that? You just can't. You just have to teach your kids how to deal with it rather than making everybody stop hurting their feelings.
Well, that's the very argument. They believe they can force people how to think and how to behave, and they're going to pass as many laws and ban as many people as possible from the platform to prove that.
You're cutting off at the end.
What I said was, they're gonna. Doesn't matter if they're correct or incorrect. They're gonna ban as many people as possible to make sure
that they can force you how to think and how to behave, and make sure that if there is any bullying, then they're banned from whatever platform that they're responsible for. What these individuals don't seem to understand is that you can't ban someone from real life, but then again, you can.
Yeah, haven't you talked about that, like persona non grata?
Yeah, V for Vendetta, black bag an individual. Like we saw that happen
We saw that happen where?
in China.
Oh, right, with the social scoring and making people basically not being able to travel on train or anything. They can't even, yeah, they can't buy
I
and
meant
sell.
making people disappear, like making people disappear, banning them from real life. That's essentially their game plan. They're gonna just they're
All right, so even worse than banning them from the ability to travel or to buy and sell, they'll just ban them, they'll get rid of them physically.
pretty much that's the world what they want. Like, any opposing ideas can just get removed. What they're succeeding in accomplishing on the internet, removing opposing ideas, they're going to succeed in real life. It's only a matter of time.
I think, yeah, I think they are succeeding, but I will, to offer a ray of hope, I think that history repeats itself. I know a lot of people want to determine that this is end times. They want to calculate the day and they want to calculate the time. And I think that Jesus will come back. I don't know that I am really going to jump on the bandwagon with everybody else who thinks it's going to be in the next few years. I think that we've seen this happen so many times that there are people that thought Hitler was the Antichrist even after the fact, so there's possible that they've tried to usher in Antichrist many, many times and maybe succeeded for a while, but here's the thing is they can try to do it their way, but it's not going to go their way until Jesus is ready to come.
All I want to say is the next person that comes up and tries to challenge these ideas, um, try not to try not to demonize him. Like he's on our side. Like I'm making plans myself to try and get into and throw my hat into the ring as far as political discourse is concerned. And what I really don't want to have happen is to have the very people I'm going to try fighting for basically call me Antichrist.
Oh yeah, I've already been told that I'm extremely evil and I don't even remember why. So that's gonna happen. Look what happened to Jesus. It's gonna happen to us too.
Well, the way I plan on going about things, I guess optically, you know, I would have to handle any opposition.
You're cutting off at the end. I'm sorry. Can you repeat yourself?
Like as far as what my plans are as far as what my plans are, as far as any opposition that might rise in front of me, I'll just have to deal with it as it comes. Whether it doesn't matter how misinformed they are. I have the spirit of truth on my side, and it's about time that the spirit of truth gets representation. We have all these oppressed groups telling us that they demand representation because of what reproductive organ they're apparently attracted to. Whereas, where's our identity? Where's our representation as sons and daughters of Christ?
Amen to that. That's why I think we'll see a lot of people. I think we'll see a lot of people rise up and find Jesus in this because of the tough times, and that is truly how it works. Unfortunately, it's these tough times where it's our time to shine. It's our time to shine as Christians. It's definitely our time to shine as people who want to talk about sound money and teach people sound money because money's going bye-bye, dollars, currency's going bye-bye. But it's time to, really talk about sound money. But first and foremost, it's time to offer a solution when there is no other solution. Because I tell you what, somebody comes to me and says, well, Trump is better than the alternative. No, there aren't just two options. And if we can shake people's programming from that, I think we'll get a little bit further because a lot of them may or may not be Christians, but man, they're not thinking beyond the scope of this world. They're only thinking about what's going on right here and right now. And I think we got to wake them up to something better.
I think at this point, if they're not woken up already, then they're essentially just
in the way. Hopefully, I'll pray for them and everything. I'll do my best to answer questions, but um, if these people want to put me behind bars, get me fired, oppress me, and then claim that I'm trying to tell them how to think and what to feel and how to behave, then yeah, it's just only so much that I can do myself. But anything is possible. Anything that requires a miracle, we need to give it up to God. We need to do everything that we can to make it easier for Him.
Well, that's true. That also means that we can't assume everybody's just in the way, right? We gotta anyway. The Lord will show us who we can and can't offer our understanding to if we're asking for His guidance in that.
Well, if they're choosing to obstruct us, then they are in the way. Even if they're misinformed and they don't know any better.
Yeah, I'm not, and I'm talking on a person by person basis. I'm not talking the general population. I'm saying person by person as we run into people. We've got to try to, it's our time to shine as a light of Jesus, and there are still souls to be saved. There really are.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think we've gone an hour, and I think that's a good amount of time, and unless there's something that we didn't hit on that you want to talk about, so please take that time now if there's something we didn't get to.
For anyone who might be catching this at any time, whether it's like a week, a month, a year from now, just remember that every single time you see these cultural Marxists at work, whether it's derailing a thread or just misrepresenting a situation, what are the tactics that they use? They use straw man arguments, appeal to ridicule, appeal to authority, just any little tricks and trades that they want to control the conversation. Call them out on it. Don't let them get away with it because they're trying to slow down discourse. And the more they can slow down discourse, then the less people actually learn what they need to know to solve the problem.
Right. I think that's a good idea to start calling people out, and we got to do it with compassion, right? We have to not do it with anger, because all we do is if we attack somebody with anger. I'm not saying everyone's going to handle it well or listen to us. There are people just going to get mad no matter how you handle it. But we have to at least try on our part to come with compassion in case that person is able to suddenly have ears to hear. So calling them out on it is not to prove that we're right. It's just to stop their control tactics.
It's also for the sake of those who might be lurking, because chances are you're not going to be able to convert or at least educate the person that's trying to control the situation. But there's going to be people that are watching. There's going to be people that are reading and be like, "Oh, this person's misrepresenting the situation. They're flat out lying." And this other person's calling them out on it. I wonder what else they might be lying about.
Right, that's a good point. We have to think about the people who are watching sometimes, and I've had to learn that myself. When I didn't want to answer questions in the beginning about gold and silver, I was kind of like the way you said it. If they don't already know, they're kind of in the way. But what I should be doing is answering their questions, even though they don't care what the answer is, probably, because there's people watching. There's somebody watching that would be like, "Oh, I didn't know that," and that'd be the person. That's why I'm answering a question I don't want to answer. That's why I'm speaking to a topic I don't want to speak to, for someone who's probably never going to care or hear, because there is somebody that's lurking and watching.
Pure and unfiltered truth is the best way in dealing with those that are in the way. One example I like to think of, which is very white pilling, very encouraging, is the huge turnover for those moderators on Facebook and YouTube and all these other big platformers that they need therapy sessions. They're trying to undo the red pills that they were given because they're learning the truth, and a lot of them are getting fired. And there's a lot of whistleblowers out there getting silenced about it, but we're having an effect.
Yeah, because of all the people that are forced to watch this stuff to determine if it's good material for YouTube or not. That's a great point. So we got to continue and persevere. It's a call to persevere in these hard times, like it says in the book of Jude.
That's right. That's right.
Is there anything else that you wanted to mention that we didn't touch on in any of these articles, or anything that you wanted to say?
No, I think we covered everything.
I think it's a good topic, and it's kind of nice that it's one I've sort of covered before. That helps. It wasn't. It has been a while, but at least it wasn't new for me. So I appreciate being reminded of some of these things that we've learned in the past, and refresh and renew our memories of these dictatorial takeovers and what they're doing to us.
Yeah, there's so many people right now at home that just have nothing better to do than be on the internet and learn about these things. So it's good to have, it's good to keep these conversations going because this is essentially, ideological subversion 101. The Bolsheviks are just like a very small part of what, what's really going on and who's responsible, who's in charge.
Yeah, hang on. I got a huge fly I need to kill.
Make sure it's a real fly, not one of those drones.
Well, it's not moving anymore. I killed it. Whatever it is. Hang on. That's a good point because it's huge, but it's dead.
Another thing to keep in mind is that, like any sci-fi dystopia you might have heard of, there's elements of truth to it. For example, Demolition Man and Black Mirror.
Oh yeah, Black Mirror is like almost too close to the timing too because it's all happening and that show's only a couple years old.
Yeah, I think after this, I'm gonna start watching a little something here and there.
Have you not seen it? Because every episode, like even though nobody seems to be talking about it, but I tried to mention that one about the metalhead because I think it was one of the least popular ones. But I've watched almost all the episodes except for some of the more recent ones because I didn't like how they were a choose how it ends type of scenario. But that metalhead was those robotic dogs, and I'm like, okay, here's the robotic dogs now walking around Sydney, or not Sydney, Singapore, and I'm like, what about Black Mirror episode Metalhead?
What happened was the account that was saved on the TV wasn't renewed, so I don't really want to give Netflix my money, so I'll have to find some other way to watch this.
Oh, I know. I use my mom's Netflix. So I can't help you with that. Okay, well, I guess since we covered it all, if you want to, or you can say a quick prayer for us in the community, or I can. How would you like to do that?
I can say a prayer.
I appreciate that.
Lord, thank you for everything you do, seen and unseen, known and unknown. Please continue to guide my hands and my heart, as well as my words. Please give us patience when you're trying to tell everyone about the good news, as well as trying to tell the truth. Help us do everything we can to make sure that we don't quench your spirit, and we continue to do what you want us to do and not what we want to do. Do not let us fall into the sin of pride when getting baited into a conversation about you, because it's not about us. It's not about us saving face. It's not about our reputation. It's not about our screen name or clout. It's about you, Lord, always first and foremost. And as long as we keep that in mind, everything else should come easily. Romans 8:28. Everything works out for the good for those who trust in the Lord and are called according to His purposes. We need to keep that in mind. Thank you for your word once again. Hallelujah. Amen.
Amen. That is great prayer. So thank you for coming on. I'm sure you'll come on again, won't you?
Sure thing. Yeah, I'm always around. Even if I'm busy, I always come back and check on things.
Well, good, yeah, because it's been a while since we did the magic show, but we'll come up with some more topics, and my internet should be getting fixed, and hopefully we'll be going live. So thanks again for being here, and you have a blessed day.
You too. Thanks for having me.